Welcome to Audio Drama Story, where stories touch the soul and calm. The Heart Audio Drama Story is the perfect place for those who struggle with insomnia or anxiety and are looking for bedtime stories. Enjoy narratives told in a calm, soothing voice. Love audio dramas filled with romance, resilience, and real emotions. Appreciate moments of silence, peace, and deep emotional connection, and today's story is about a teacher facing a difficult moment when it's time to protect and recover her Bitcoin seed phrase. Shall we begin? Take a deep breath, get comfortable, and listen with your heart. Title: How I Hid My Bitcoin Keys. Back in 2017, I was just a public school literature teacher. I taught at two schools, one in the morning, another at night. I walked around with books tucked under my arm, tired eyes, and a soul full of poems no one read anymore. I dreamed of publishing a book, a novel maybe, or a collection of short stories about life in the classroom. But my paycheck barely covered rent and bus fare. Literature didn't pay the bills. And time to write? It vanished between stacks of papers to grade and endless admin tasks. One of those weary afternoons, Daniel, an old friend from college, showed up at my door with a kind of excitement that felt straight out of a movie. "Have you ever heard of Bitcoin?" he asked. I rolled my eyes. He knew my world was made of letters, not code. I was fluent in Clarice Lispector, not cryptography, so I laughed. The kind of laugh you give when something sounds too far-fetched to be real. Crypto what? Is that like invisible money? Kind of, he smiled. It's the money of the future, decentralized, free from banks, like free verse poetry, but with technology. That got me. Free verse. Freedom. It tickled something deep in me I had almost forgotten. Daniel explained the basics with the patience of a monk. Words like blockchain, digital wallet, seed phrase. They sounded like pieces of a language I didn't speak, but there was a strange beauty in it, a kind of promise, a hidden door. And me, always counting pennies, praying there'd be something left for coffee at the end of the month. I thought, why not? I created a digital wallet, followed the steps, bought around 200 reais worth of Bitcoin. It was just a whim, a poetic gesture in a mathematical world. I wrote down the recovery phrase, those 12 magic words, in an old notebook, the same, one where I kept scattered quotes and half-baked story ideas I never had time to finish. Then I tucked it away in the back of my desk drawer, between scribbled dreams and overdue bills. And just like that, I forgot all about it. 5 years went by. Inflation was out of control. The price of rice skyrocketed like a rocket, while my salary crawled like a wounded snail. There was no pretending anymore. Bills stacked up on top of the fridge, sleepless nights piled one on top of the other, and my dreams. Well, those had long been buried beneath chalk dust and overdue invoices. It was on a rainy Saturday, gray on the outside, suffocating on the inside, that I decided to do that kind of cleaning that isn't just about the house, but about the soul. I pulled out old boxes from the closet, papers from another lifetime, memories that refuse to disappear even when you've run out of space to store them. And at the bottom of one of those boxes, between graded tests and letters from former students, I saw it. The black moleskin, hardcover, edges a bit chewed, pages yellowed with time. I remembered buying it on a romantic impulse, convinced that real writers always owned one. A moleskin, I used to say, was halfway to a Nobel Prize in literature. I opened it gently, almost like I was opening a time capsule. Inside, there was everything. Quotes from Clarice Lispector, unfinished short story fragments, lists of books I never got around to reading. But what caught my attention was something odd. A string of words, scribbled hastily, like someone writing, in fear of forgetting or of being discovered. Random words at first glance. But something about them felt deliberate, even sacred, like a coded poem. Rose, silence, horse, winter, compass, lightning, window, bird, orange, wind, moss, sky. And then the shock. It was the seed phrase to my Bitcoin wallet. 12 words, 12 keys that open an invisible vault. They aren't just a password, they are the access. If you lose those words, you lose everything. There's no forgot my password. No backup, no help desk. It's like each word is a key to a locked castle, and they all must be in exactly the right order. And there they were, scrawled in a notebook full of unfinished dreams, in the middle of the chaos that is adult life in Brazil. I froze, sat down right there on the floor, moleskin still in my lap. It felt like finding an old map, drawn by my own hand, after forgetting I'd ever hidden a treasure. And then came that rush in my stomach. Could it still be there? My hands were shaking. I sat on the floor of my living room, surrounded by open boxes and closed-off memories. There was a strange echo in that moment, as if time itself had paused just to watch me. The old laptop still worked. Carefully, I began to search. Which app did I use? Which wallet was it? Was it too late? I tried one, then another. Errors, updates, incompatibilities. Until finally, I got in. The screen loaded slowly, as if it too understood the weight of what was coming. And then, there it was. What once had been a symbolic amount, almost a joke, was now worth over 100,000 rees, a small fortune. In a country where I lived by splitting shampoo into monthly payments and canceling streaming services, this felt like science fiction. But that's when the real drama began. Fear. Fear of losing it. Fear of changing. It wasn't just about the money. It was about what that money said about me. Who had I been before seeing that balance? And who was I about to become? From an invisible teacher to someone with real power. Not the kind of power that shows up on a paycheck, but the kind that weighs on your soul. I started hiding, I didn't tell anyone, not even my sister, who's always known everything about me. Not even my therapist, who had listened to years of broken dreams and unpaid bills. Not even my ex, who still called me in the middle of the night, like love didn't have an off switch. I was afraid of being robbed, afraid of being envied, afraid of myself. How would I keep it safe? I decided to protect the keys, not digitally. I no longer trusted the cloud. My cloud was already too heavy. So I went analog, poetic, difficult. I rewrote the seed phrase with a permanent ink pen on special paper, the kind that doesn't tear easily. Cut it into 3 pieces, and I hid each one in a different corner of my life. One behind an old photo of my grandmother, tucked into the frame only I know how to open. Another inside an envelope sewn under the lining of my teaching bag, the one I'd mended 100 times, and the third in a place only a broken heart would understand. Inside a book, but not just any book. I took the seed phrase and rewrote it with trembling hands, not on just any paper. I used rice paper. Thin, translucent, almost ethereal, as if those words belonged to another realm. It was a symbolic choice, a delicate material, fragile, just like the life I was living, just like the very idea of wealth hidden in silence. Carefully, I cut the sheet to the exact size of a postcard. I wrote it by hand with a black permanent ink pen. No mistakes. No corrections. As if it were a sacred poem. Then, I hid that card between the pages of a 19th century Slavic poetry book, title in Russian. Leather cover, worn and cracked, smelled of mildew and forgotten time. The book sat untouched, collecting dust, on a shelf in the municipal library of the school where I taught. I knew no one ever picked it up. Too obscure, too colorless, too far from the interests of curious students. But for me, it was perfect, like hiding a grain of sand in the middle of the desert. A silent pact. Every time I walked past that book, my heart would tighten. It was like a secret altar, my time capsule, my paper vault, but I never touched it, never checked if were. It was still there. It was a sacred pact I had made with myself. You won't open it until you're ready, until you're someone else. There, on that cold, dusty shelf, between forgotten pages and long-dead poets, I hid the most valuable thing I had. Not the money, but what it meant, a second chance. Not telling anyone was part of the ritual too. It was my secret, my quiet rebellion, against the system, against failure, against the routine that told me day after day that I was just another tired teacher, a secret that pulsed. Sometimes I dreamt of the book being discovered by a curious student, by a distracted janitor, or by myself, one day in a burst of courage. But every time I got close to that shelf, I froze. I stared at it the way one stares at the future, with fear and fascination in equal parts. The book remained there, and so did I, living with the light weight of a secret that could change everything, but, for now, just needed to stay quiet. But then, the fire came. It was an ordinary Tuesday, one of those days where everything starts off wrong. Spilled coffee, canceled meetings, a defiant student. I got the news in the teacher's group chat. Fire at the library, electrical short circuit. Part of the collection was lost. I thought it was minor, just a scare, but my heart, that traitor, skipped a beat. I rushed there, took a cab. Didn't think. The sound of sirens still echoed in the air when I arrived. The smell of smoke burned more than the news itself. And there it was. The second floor, the foreign literature section, reduced to ash, blackened floors, charred books, twisted shelves. The windows had been opened, letting the wind carry scraps of pages across the courtyard, as if literature itself were trying to escape. I stood there, frozen, hands on my head, eyes too dry to cry. The despair was silent, and no one understood. They thought it was about the books. Some colleagues even hugged me, trying to comfort the sensitive teacher who lost her beloved Russian poets. But it wasn't that. I knew. Somewhere between Dostoevsky and Pushkin, between pages of frost and soul, was my hidden fortune, my freedom, my secret, my keys, or maybe not. I went home like someone returning from a funeral. I didn't speak to anyone. I lay in the dark for hours, staring at the ceiling, trying to reconstruct the seed phrase in my mind. But my thoughts were as scorched as the shelves. The next day, I returned to the library, alone, in silence. I walked through the ruins, holding my breath, heart barely beating, and then, in the most unlikely corner, among a pile of scorched books and the remnants of a fallen shelf, I saw it. The book, the same one, edges burned, but intact, opened exactly to the page where I had hidden the rice paper. Hands shaking, I turned the page, as delicately as if touching a relic. The paper was gone, but something else was there. A thin scrap, burned at the edges, stuck inside the back cover, and on it, words. Still legible, 6 out of 12. Half the key, half the hope. Half the key. 6 words, still visible, written on that scorched scrap of rice paper stuck to the book's inside cover. The edges had melted like snow meeting flame, but the center, the heart, survived, and there they were, 6 words from the seed. Phrase. Half the way back. But what about the rest? The emptiness hit first. I tried to remember. I closed my eyes and strained my mind. A sound, a rhyme, a rhythm. Nothing. It felt like time itself was punishing me for having guarded something so important. With such delicacy. But then, the past whispered, almost like a poem. Forgotten fragments. That night, digging through drawers, notebooks, and old memories, I found an old planner from 2017, blue cover, coffee stickers, motivational quotes. Inside, between lesson plans and book lists, a single page stopped me. A page scribbled with loose words. They looked random at first, until I recognized the pattern. They were attempts, practice drills. Back then, afraid I'd forget the seed phrase, I had followed some YouTube tutorial on mnemonic tricks, grouped words, silly rhymes, nonsense sentences strung together like vocabulary games. Tiger run, friend flower gate moon. And then it clicked. Those were the first ones. They were all there, scattered, hidden in the margins of a distracted past. The final clue, 2 words remained. 2 that weren't on the burned paper, nor in the planner pages. But a memory tugged at me, softly, like a child's hand. Once, to help me memorize them, I had written a poem. I searched my lesson notebooks. Between old poetry exercises and notes on Baudelaire, I found it, a short, childish poem. But 2 words stood out, offbeat, different, cradle, glory. They didn't match the tone, didn't belong to the verse. They were the missing ones. The poem had been my mind's secret trick, the complete key, with all 12 words gathered, now written down on a fresh sheet of archival grade paper, protected by 3 layers of backup and caution. I exhaled, like someone breaking the surface after a deep, forgotten dive. I still didn't know what I'd do with that money, or with that second chance. But I knew this. I had won an invisible battle. Against time, against fire, against forgetting. That night, I went home and cried everything I hadn't cried before. It wasn't despair. It was an old kind of crying, accumulated, as if every version of myself were hugging me all at once. The girl who bought Bitcoin as a joke, the woman who hid secrets in forgotten books, the one who was afraid, the one who nearly lost it all, and the one who found herself again. I wept for the things time had taken, for all the moments I thought I was too small to deserve something big. And then I breathed. A new kind of keeping. I rewrote the seed phrase. Calmly. Quietly. This time, no. Rice paper, no poetry, but with method. I stored it in 2 places. 3, locked them away, but not like before. This time, I didn't hide it from myself. The real worth, the Bitcoin, it's still there. I never touched it, never withdrew a cent. It's my time capsule. A living reminder that true value isn't just money. It's knowing you were capable of protecting something precious without losing yourself in the process. It's proof to yourself that you can survive the fire, the passing years, the doubt, the loneliness, and still remain whole, or whole enough to keep going. A new lens, I'm still teaching. Same routine, crowded classrooms, old books, distracted students. But my smile, it's different now. Because now I know that among ashes, among torn pages, among lost years, something can survive. and sometimes that is worth more than any cryptocurrency. Final words. Guard what matters, protect what is rare, and never underestimate. What a literature teacher, with a tired heart and a silent secret, is capable of.